Hi, I'm Lauren Gray, an intern reporter at the Illinois Eagle. I graduated from Knox College in Galesburg, Illinois with a Bachelor of Arts degree in creative writing. That's how I became involved in the Illinois Eagle as a representative of the Quad Cities area. Now I'm in Evanston, representing Chicagoland. The Illinois Eagle is an online news publication focusing on LGBTQ news in Illinois. I specialize in writing reviews of media by LGBTQ creators and representation of LGBT characters. I'm with Dan Juday, author of the new memoir, Waltzing a TwoStep, Reckoning, Family, Faith, and Self. So Dan, I saw that you had produced documentaries and written poetry before. You touched on this a bit in the beginning of your book, but why did you decide to shift to writing a memoir?
Good question. Most of my professional life I've written, but a lot of it has been advocacy work. I was writing on behalf of either a larger project, like script writing on a film. The film wouldn't have been, my baby. I would have been brought in to produce and script write, but it was someone else's original idea. Or I was doing advocacy work. I worked for Project Hope, Medical Education Foundation. I would do medical reports and promotional stuff. So it wasn't until I retired that I really had the luxury of thinking about, okay, what would you like to write? And I decided to start with my memoirs because I already had the research done, if that's fair enough to say. I didn't have to go out and conceive the story. I just had to figure out how to tell it.
Because I've struggled with this before myself, I have to ask you, what do the words writer's block mean to you?
I don't know. I don't know exactly what it means. I hear about it all the time. There's always, the older writer was struggling because he had such great novels and now he can't find it. If there's anything for me that's a block, it's whatever that bugaboo is that keeps you from sitting down and relaxing and just, in my case, typing. I don't write longhand. I write on a keyboard. Just start typing. Just get something flowing. And what I find is if I can get there, within a few minutes, I get lost in what I'm doing, and then it's not that something brilliant comes out every time, but at least I'm doing something. To me, the bugaboo, like I said, the block is just making yourself sit down, quit surfing the internet, quit looking out the window, quit getting fresh coffee, just get your hands on the keyboard. That's my writer's block.
You write a lot about feeling alone as a gay closeted man. Now that you're fully out, having published a book in which you write about your sexuality, do you feel like more a part of the LGBTQ community? And how do you feel this community and treatment of LGBTQ people have changed?
I think my circumstances are different now than they were when I was younger. Let's say when I was 35, and of course my story in this particular memoir doesn't get me that far, so you wouldn't have known that. But I was busy in the gay community. I was dating, or I was paired off with someone. Usually I was paired off with someone. And we would go to the bars on a Friday night, or there would be parties I'd be invited to, me and my partner, for example. And I felt very much a part of the gay community. Professionally, I couldn't be out, so in that sense, I wasn't out. But now I'm older. I'm living in rural Ireland. There is no real gay community around here that I know of, that I'm connected to. So, oddly enough, I feel probably less connected to the gay community now. I don't feel isolated or distant from them. They're not around me.
You've mentioned the title Waltzing a TwoStep in the book itself. but when and why did you decide that should be the title of the book?
I came up with it when I was talking about marching. I was a drum major, and everything was in a two-step, and I was trying to get the entire band to kind of snap to and do that. And I realized, and I sort of threw it in as a line, but I was kind of waltzing. I was doing it backwards, and I was twirling the mace and that sort of thing. And it occurred to me that in some ways, I really was trying to fit. There is an actual dance. Wouldn't be a formal dance, but there is a method for waltzing a two-step, which is literally to get 3 steps into 2 beats, and that seemed to me to get kind of at the heart of what I was doing at the time. I was not fitting into the same 2 steps that everyone else was. I was getting in that little extra step by being gay, but being hidden about it, and constantly not talking about it, which is a lot of work. Constantly not talking about something that's on your mind. So I said, well, let's try that as a title, and publisher said okay. So that's the title that we came up with.
You wrote a lot about spirituality in this book. Do you see writing it as kind of a spiritual or therapeutic practice?
Absolutely. And I'm glad that that sense of it came out in your reading of it, because I remain a spiritual person. I feel sort of connected to beyond this earth, whatever else there is out there. I had no clear idea. I had no definition. I can't tell you what it was. But I was certainly steeped in a religion that explained all of it. And I think it sort of held me together through an awful lot of what I went through in life. Still does to this day. But it's not a crutch. There's a passage in the story where I'm coming to the realization that I'm not going to get married, that I'm having an affair with this young man, and that's what I'm going to pursue. And sort of my whole world comes crashing down. And I turn to religion, and I find out that it can't be that kind of a crutch. You're going to have to turn inward as well and find certain strengths within yourself. And that is what I think I balance my spiritual sense with, an effort to find an inner strength as well.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's sort of this juxtaposition between you being very spiritual and also struggling a little bit with it because of the way that they talk about sexuality and things like that in what you were taught.
In later years, I became involved in an Episcopalian parish, and it was so close to the Catholic tradition in which I grew up, except that over the course of time, very slowly, small community by small community, they seem to make their peace with the fact that we actually are all created in the image of God, even us gay people, and that is something to be celebrated. So that's certainly an evolution that I've been able to see and never expected, and couldn't be happier about.
What part of the book did you have the hardest time writing?
It's a long story, so there's several parts. I do think my high school days, I was conscious of the fact that the people I was describing are still, I wouldn't say central to my life, but they're still, I'm aware of them, they're aware of me, and I wanted to get that right. Also, I wanted to get it right about my brothers and sisters who are still alive. thanks be to God. And that was always kind of the hard part for me. The stories that I tell about people who I met and only briefly or spent only a small amount of time with were probably the easier parts to tell, and I probably didn't develop them quite as well as fully fleshed out human beings.
On the flip side, what part of the book was the most fun to write?
I think that the one that I enjoyed the most, the one that seemed to flow the most freely, was the story of my accounting as a teacher in an elementary school, because it was kind of, well, at that point I knew how this was all going to fit together, because there was something in being with those kids that was a surprisingly joyful thing, but also it taught me something that I wouldn't. Ironically, I learned from the kids. I hope they learned from me, but I learned so much from them, and it was by being with them, knowing that I was, they were entrusted to me, that their welfare was in my hands, and so I watched them very closely. And as I watched them very closely, I saw kind of the indomitability of the human spirit. They were all dealing with a difficult environment, and they were doing so without the guile that we adults learn to cover ourselves with. And I don't know, after a while I suddenly realized, yeah, I've got that same indomitable spirit in me as well. And even reliving it, I enjoyed it, because I enjoyed the memories that it evoked.
What is the writing process like? For example, how did you know what details of your life to record in the memoir, and how did you jog your memory?
I had a sort of a framing question that I would ask myself if something were, I would write a piece and then I would say, does this really fit in? And the question was, tell the reader what it was like to grow up as a young, gay, spiritual seeker in the late part of the 20th century in the middle of America. And if I found myself getting off on a diversion, what is this really got to do with the core story, then I would throw it away, and I would say I probably threw away 3 original drafts. The first one was 80 pages, and I threw it away. It doesn't mean that there were parts of it that I said, oh, I can use that. But you asked about the process. For me, perhaps it's easier for other people, but for me, it's a matter of writing and throwing a lot of it away, but recognizing that in that first draft and in that second draft and in that third draft, there are the gems of ideas that maybe the 4th or 5th time you go at them, you might get it right. Even then, I cut probably another 50 pages after I thought the manuscript was done, because I realized it could be trimmed.
Has anyone in your family read the book yet?
No. I sent them all some of the promotional things that the calling card books has put out on Facebook, etc., and told them what I was trying to do with the book, and that I hope they enjoy it. But no, they haven't picked up on it. Nobody's. I suppose, through responding to some of that promotional material, they could have gotten an advance copy, but nobody's asked for one. I think they'll be okay with it. We'll see.
About having people over for dinner a lot in the book. If you could invite any 3 people for dinner, who would you invite?
What? I suppose they have to be living, right?
Living or dead.
Oh my goodness. I suppose if it were dinner, that's a very hypothetical, so I'll just take a stab at it. I suppose if it were dinner, it would be friends that are gone, probably, that I miss. And it would be an evening of, reminiscence and camaraderie and that sort of thing. I don't think I'd invite, the great philosophers of the world, because I don't think I'd be up to snuff for the conversation. It would be the ones that are friends around me, I think. I thank you for your interest. I thank you for reading the book. And I just look forward to whatever you produce. And I wish you much luck in your career as you start out and many years on it.
Thank you for your time and your responses. Yeah, I do. It is interesting because you see things where they do something more historical with LGBT characters, because it does kind of feel like a lot of people are just like, oh yeah, everybody was just heterosexual and cisgender, and this is just a completely modern invention when people came up with these acronyms and stuff, and it's like, actually that's not true. So
I'm living testimony.